In her article, The Role of Children in the Design of New Technology, Allison Druin presents the different aspects of using children in designing new technology. She starts off with a few generalizations about children, about the way they think, about the way they play games. She goes on to saying that typically teachers and parents are usually asked when designing new games and new technologies where children are involved. Allison Druin believes, she argues, that children should be used more often. Now, she presents children as she argues that there are 4 different roles that children can play in creating their and having their own input. First, as the user, as a tester, an informant, and finally as a design partner. Now, each of these aspects, they're not going to apply to just any technology, and obviously there are going to be certain logistics involved. But Druin argues that each one is a viable option to use. In the role of user, the child simply uses the technology and adults just sit back and observe them. The child can be observed, they can be videotaped, they can be tested, there's different things they can do. Developers can use video cameras, they can use one-way mirrors. They just look at the child and just observe what they do using the technology. It's got some pros and cons to it. What's good about it is developers can just sit back and look at the bigger picture. They can see where where the technology can be improved as the child uses it. One drawback is that this is great feedback for the developers. Unfortunately, it's more likely to help a future product as opposed to a current project. In the role of tester, there's a lot more involvement from the child, and very importantly, the product is tested before it goes to market. So there's a lot more questions involved. Was it exciting? Was it boring? Did you like it? Did you not like it? The child is just, there's a greater input from the child. Now, one of the advantages of this is there's an immediate, one of the impact of this is that there can be immediate changes before final development. The child ends up feeling more empowered because we're getting more input from them, but at the same time, one of the cons is, there can be time constraints, and ultimately, whatever that impact is, it could be limited because ultimately, in the end, adults have the final say. And because of time constraints, there's only so much that a child can input. But as a tester, there's definitely more involvement. In the role of informant, the child takes a more active role in the design process. There's greater input from the developers ask for greater input at different stages of development. The child ends up taking more of a hands-on approach. This is nice because impact is felt immediately because they can get their feedback right away. It empowers the child, so it's very nice. It gets their creativity going. It can have some drawbacks. Children are very brutal and honest in their opinions, so sometimes that can take the developers back a little bit. Likewise, also at this stage, there are some more accommodations that are needed to get children that involved, particularly from the parents and the teachers. As a design partner, the child has the greatest autonomy. Their consultation is always sought after. They are always listened to. Now, this is nice because their input can have the greatest dramatic effect. You get instant feedback. So that's good because developers can make quick decisions. Now, it can also have some drawbacks because now children and adults have to come to decisions about any major changes that have to be made. Plus, adults might sometimes have a problem working with children on an equal level. Druin finishes up by talking about how we need to understand the user better and how we need to include children more and how developers can take advantage of that when creating their products. There are pros and cons to all the different methods, and Druin believes that each technology obviously is going to be used better with one method over the other. I liked Druin's article. She obviously has experience with children, and she definitely knows her data very well. However, I do have mixed opinions about the results. I fully support children as the user and the tester, but not so much as an informant or a design partner. As the informant and the design partner, that creates, for me, I believe, creates a lot of stress on the child. They need their more time, their more opinions. They're not going to have the same discipline or emotional discipline as an adult would. You can't expect the child to go to meetings and meet deadlines. Plus, on top of that, is going to create more stress for teachers and parents. It's ideologically, it's a great idea, but realistically, I don't think it would work. Now, as the user or a tester, that's definitely more advantageous. It's the least amount of involvement for the child, but the greatest rewards. Obviously, each technology is different, so, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but on a more realistic level, I think the user and the test for the child will work out best. And as a result, I think developers, they get more insight, and children, ultimately, they get a better product.